Welcome to the Explainer. Right now, we're standing on the edge of a medical frontier that's moving so unbelievably fast, it honestly feels a little bit like science fiction. We're witnessing massive dual breakthroughs happening simultaneously in the world of peptide therapeutics. On one side, we've got the explosive evolution of mainstream weight loss drugs, which are fundamentally rewriting the rules of metabolic health for millions of people. And on the flip side, there's this parallel revolution happening in regenerative therapies, compounds that are specifically designed to heal tissue, preserve muscle, and drastically accelerate recovery. These two deeply connected worlds are fully colliding in 2026, creating what we can really only describe as a peptide revolution. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. 1. The weight loss drug wars. 2. Enter the triple agonist. 3. The healing peptide revolution. 4. The 2026 FDA reclassification. And finally, 5. Safety, purity, and compounding. Section 1. The weight loss drug wars. Tirzepatide versus semaglutide. To see where we're going, we first need to look at exactly where we are. We're riding an escalator of efficacy where the science is moving astonishingly fast. The drug war right now is fighting on two distinct fronts, accessibility and raw power. On the accessibility front, a massive shift literally just happened in December 2025. The FDA officially approved oral Wegovy, which is semaglutide in a 25 milligram once-daily pill. By using an absorption enhancer called SNAC, they achieved the impossible, taking a highly complex injectable drug and making it a pill. That means no more needles and no more strict cold chain storage, which totally changes who can access these GLP-1 therapies worldwide. But over on the pure power front, we had a landmark moment published in the New England Journal of Medicine, the SURMOUNT-5 trial. For the very first time, we saw a direct clinical trial face-off between the two undisputed injectable powerhouses of the market, tirzepatide and semaglutide. This was a 72-week open-label trial specifically targeting adults with obesity, comparing the absolute maximum tolerated doses of both medications. So, the crucial point is this stunning number right here, a 20.2% weight reduction. At week 72, participants on tirzepatide lost over 20% of their body weight compared to 13.7% for those on injectable semaglutide. And keeping things in perspective, that new oral semaglutide pill we just mentioned, it showed about 15.1% weight loss in its own OASIS-1 trials at 68 weeks. Tirzepatide also drove a massive 18.4 centimeter reduction in waist circumference. With clinical data like that, tirzepatide firmly established itself as the new heavyweight champion of pure efficacy. But the science isn't stopping there. The human body has way more than just one or two metabolic pathways we can activate. Section 2. Enter the triple agonist. Retatrutide's monumental leap. If tirzepatide version 2.0, Eli Lilly's retatrutide is definitely version 3.0. It's a revolutionary triple agonist. Instead of hitting just one or two targets, it simultaneously hits three: GIP and GLP-1 to fiercely crush appetite and boost insulin, plus glucagon, which essentially acts as a switch telling your liver to massively ramp up your resting energy burn. Now, what's really interesting about this is the sheer magnitude of the results from the Phase 3 TRIUMPH-4 trial. At the highest dose of 12 milligrams, patients lost an average of 28.7% of their body weight over 68 weeks. That is an average of over 71 pounds. But perhaps even more astonishing for these specific patients, who also suffered from knee osteoarthritis, is that retatrutide drove a massive 75.8% reduction in osteoarthritis pain. Over 1 in 8 patients became completely free of knee pain. It's fundamentally altering both body mass and systemic inflammation at the exact same time. However, pushing the boundaries of human physiology inevitably introduces new variables. So let's look impartially at the risks. In the trials for retatrutide, a new safety signal emerged called dysesthesia. This is essentially an abnormal sense of touch that causes normal, everyday sensations like your clothing brushing up against your skin to feel highly unusual or even painful. It's a side effect we often associate with larger neurological conditions. In the trial, up to 20.9% of patients on the highest 12 milligram dose reported this symptom, compared to just 0.7% on the placebo. While these events were generally mild and rarely actually led to patients dropping out of the trial, it's a vital reminder for us. These results are miraculous, yes, but these are incredibly powerful pharmaceutical tools. The emergence of neurological side effects highlights the real physiological trade-offs of these next-generation triple agonists. It underscores exactly why careful medical monitoring is absolutely non-negotiable. We are literally changing the chemical signaling of the brain and the central nervous system. Section 3. The healing peptide revolution. Regenerative and growth compounds. Let's shift tracks from mainstream weight loss to a parallel revolution happening right alongside it. For years, regenerative compounds have been quietly utilized by biohackers and elite athletes, but they're now rapidly entering the broader medical conversation. Let's briefly break down what they actually do. BPC 157 is renowned for systemic tissue and gut healing. TB 500 is heavily utilized for deep cellular recovery and injury repair. Then we have growth hormone secretagogues, which is really just a fancy scientific word for a substance that tells your own body to secrete its natural hormones, like CJC 2095 and ipamorelin. Ipamorelin is absolutely fascinating because it essentially works by removing the brake in your body, a hormone called somatostatin. Doing that allows for a steady, restorative release of your own growth hormone without artificially shutting down your natural production. And here is where these two parallel tracks brilliantly collide. As discussed by Dr. Craig Conover on the Huberman podcast, we're now seeing the clinical synergy of these therapies. Doctors are actively pairing potent weight loss drugs like tirzepatide with growth hormone peptides like sermorelin. Why? Well, to expertly offset the rapid muscle loss that almost always accompanies drastic weight reduction. By using these growth hormone secretagogues, patients can preserve lean muscle mass and prevent that gaunt, skeleton-like appearance that so often happens when you lose a massive amount of weight very quickly. Section 4, the 2026 FDA reclassification, opening the legal pathways. Let's move ahead and see how this builds. In early 2026, an enormous regulatory shift was set in motion that is completely changing the landscape for athletes, biohackers, and aging patients who rely on these healing compounds. Just tracking the timeline, in February 2026, the Department of Health and Human Services announced that several key peptides previously restricted under the FDA's Category 2 list would be officially moved back to Category 1. By April, the FDA updated its 5038 bulk drug substances list. And looking ahead to July 2026, Formal Pharmacy Compounding Advisory Committee, or PCAC, reviews are scheduled to solidify these monumental changes. Notice how popular regenerative peptides like BPC 157, TB 500, Semax, and Epitalon are actively being moved from the restricted Category 2 list right back over to the Category 1 list targeting formal review in late July. Now, we must impartially emphasize a critical distinction here. Reclassification to Category 1 provides a legal pathway for compounding pharmacies to produce these with a doctor's prescription. It is not an outright FDA safety approval or endorsement of the compounds themselves. It simply reopens the door for regulated, supervised access. Section 5. Safety, Purity, and Compounding, Navigating the New Market. Because many of these compounds remain off-label, navigating the new market requires extreme caution. Whether you're utilizing advanced weight loss medications or newly reclassified regenerative peptides, the absolute necessity of medical supervision just cannot be overstated. It's a question many people naturally ask when looking at the high cost of prescriptions. If these peptides are so effective, why not just buy them cheaply online from unregulated research chemical websites? Well, the answer is stark. A recent FDA analysis found that over 40% of peptide products sold through these gray market vendors contained inaccurate dosing, degraded active compounds, or outright dangerous contamination. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why pure, regulated compounding is essential. Cheap manufacturing processes often leave behind something called lipopolysaccharides, or LPS. This is essentially a bacterial endotoxin. If you inject gray market peptides, you might not feel it at first, but LPS accumulates in your body over time, eventually triggering a dangerous, cumulative, inflammatory, and immune response. Pharmaceutical compounding completely filters and removes this toxin, protecting your immune system. So how do you actually access these powerful tools safely? It requires following an objective legal process. First, find a prescribing physician or licensed telemedicine clinic. Second, get comprehensive baseline blood work done to understand your specific metabolic markers. Third, receive a targeted, medically monitored prescription. And finally, fill that prescription exclusively at a licensed 503A or 503B compounding pharmacy, where strict third-party testing guarantees absolute purity. There is simply no shortcuts when it comes to your biology. We've covered a massive amount of ground today, from the incredible accessibility of new oral GLP-1s and the staggering 28% weight loss of triple agonists, right through to the legal reopening of powerful regenerative compounds. So I leave you with this final thought. As peptide therapies become exponentially more powerful and legally accessible in the clinical setting, how will this redefine the limits of human aging and performance? The science is moving faster than ever, and the tools to completely transform our metabolic health are finally here. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and we'll see you next time as we continue to break down the absolute cutting edge of science.